The question is about new public administration seriously jolted. Jolted means what? Jolted means you can take it as questioned, affected, countered, any words you can use. The traditional concepts and outlook, and enriched the discipline by imparting wider perspective, linking it closely to society. Fine. So it doesn't matter who had told this, Nigro have told that, but it doesn't matter. I've told you multiple times. You don't have to worry much about who has told this, why did they. So forget if in case you knew, it's fine. If you don't know why, in what context they have told, it is not necessary for us. You just have to look at what is the statement that has been given. Fine. Obviously, it's a 15 marker. So obvious, what will be the obvious structure? First, you write about NPA. Fine. Basis means what? Context. That should be the structure. So context means what? How do you have to link it then? Okay, welcome. So NPA started in which context? In the context of, or in the backdrop of, Minobrew Conference 1, 1968, headed by Dwight Waldo. So that first context. Even another context, if you want to tell, fine, why did it emerge? It emerged in US, fine, in 1960s. What is the reason? Because of the times of turbulence and chaos and disturbance. Chaos and disturbance means the system was going through a lot of confusions. Fine. And what was that? Obviously, I've already told you multiple times. Because of what? Martin Luther King assassination. Fine. Remember, in a 10 marker, you will not get so much of space to write all this, because it's a 15 marker, or if it is a 20 marker, you will get the space. That's why we are writing it. In the context of the assassination of Martin Luther King, even you can also add John F. Kennedy. Fine. And then the losses for US in the Vietnam War, and then obviously the racial conflicts, urban riots, so many things. In this context, obviously there was a kind of disillusionment. Because of all this, what you had? There was a disillusionment. Disillusionment of people or practitioners, whatever. Disillusionment of people with respect to relevance of PAVAD. Disillusionment of the people with respect to the relevance of PAVAD. Fine. Hence, obviously, they questioned and they came up with this. If you want another context, you can write again. I'll give you a broader structure. If in case space management issues is, but I think it's better. It had a mainly, it was what you call this, inspired or influenced by. It was influenced by what all? One is the Honey Report. Remember all those things. One is Honey Report. Another one is what? Philadelphia Conference on theory and practice of public administration, all those things, you know. In all this context, they came up because there was a core. At the core, what did they identify? At the core, they identified that there is a difference between theory and practice of PAVAD. So what you are telling in theory, what actually it is being implemented is not the same. There is a difference between the theory and practice of public administration. Understood? Now this is the context. Again, as I said, depending on the space and all those things, if you think, okay, sir, I have less space, sir, then only mentioning keywords. If you think, no, I can manage, maybe you can explain a little bit. Depending on your space management skill, you have to write how much you have to write, how much you have to stick to, you have to identify that. Fine. And now come to it, it has seriously jolted the traditional concepts and outlook of the discipline. Fine. So hence, broadly, even if you write this, your answer will be done according to Robert Golumbevsky. Fine. NPA has certain goals and NPA has certain anti-goals. Just explain them, your answer is done, how it has seriously jolted. Fine. Even here itself we can write according to Robert Golumbevsky also you can say that NPA has affected the traditional ideas of public administration. And how is that explained? What are that? Obviously, relevance, value, change, equity. Fine. Anti goals are what? It is anti-hierarchy, anti-technical, and anti-positivist. Means only focusing on structure was rejected, not focusing on the emotions was rejected, focusing more on hierarchy was rejected. He explained these words because traditional administration was value neutral. NPS said you can't be value neutral, you have to have a value, you have to respond to the problems. Relevance, you just have to explain those words, that's it. That is the structure wise. Then the next structure is what? You can also write that what? Remember we keep telling D3 that NP always supports what? Democratization, decentralization, devolution. So explain that also. That itself is against. Whenever you are writing this, you have to keep linking how it has affected what? Traditional aspects, because these are the traditional aspects, thereby linking it more close to society. Linking it more close to society. Fine. There itself you can tell. In addition, what it has done as significance of NPM itself, we can say as a subheading kind of a one. How significant is NPA? So what it did? It made PubAd more relevant to society. PubAd was made more relevant to society. Fine. Values became inherent components. Values became inherent component of PubAd. If you want, you can say NPS, NWS later followed same approach. NPS and NWS, New Public Service and New Weberian State later followed the same approach. Values have become an inherent component of public administration. Public administration has become more relevant to society. Fine. Then difference between theory and practice is constantly, or at least there is an effort to reduce it. Difference between theory and practice is constantly addressed. Understood? The limitations of Weberian traditional bureaucracy Weberian bureaucracy is addressed. Huh? What Robert Dahl said, okay, those three problems, signs of one here told that broad-based discipline, okay. Yeah, to an extent you can say NPM tried to address the problems identified or concerns identified by tried to address concerns raised by Robert Dahl. To an extent, not exactly, but yes. Okay, so these are all broadly kind of significance. Now what you have to write? However, what is the limitation? However, NPM had limited success. NPM had limited success because as I keep telling, you cannot write one side of the answer, make it broad. What is you write those criticisms? You have to write those thinkers as George Fredrickson criticized. As George Fredrickson criticized, what is that very famous criticism? Newness is not in the, what do you call as this, thread. So newness is in what? the way fabric is woven. So you can write that very famous statement. Newness is not. That means you can't call it as exactly new. Newness is not in the thread that is used. So what is it? What is new? It is in the way the fabric is woven. Newness is not in the thread that is used. It is in the fabric that is woven. It is in the fabric that is woven. Fine. That means there is nothing. Again, if you want to say that, it means, what does it mean? The same values has already been raised in the beginning. It's not like you are for the first time you are not raising those values. It has already been there. The way you are trying to contextualize it was different. That's the point. Second famous criticism is by whom? Dwight Waldo himself. So Dwight Waldo's criticism. NPA is revolutionary in its approach, but status quoist in its solutions. That's why he calls it as it's a kind of neo-romanticism. NPA is revolutionary in its approach, status quoist in its solutions, methodologies. Means practical solutions you did not suggest. Status quoist in its methodologies and solutions. Methodology means what? You did not provide practical solution. You criticize, we are not saying no. But then he only criticized it as what? According to Dwight Waldo, it is a new form of romanticism. Means expecting something very good, all those things is correct. And according to another criticism is also there. That what? NPA tried to transform public administration or bring public administration more closer to whom? Political science, thereby affecting the identity of PAVAD. Because whatever the political science as a discipline looks into it, why are you asking PAVAD to look into it? That's the criticism. NPA brought PAVAD more closer to political science, thereby compromising, thereby affecting its identity. Fine. This is all the broader picture. Even if it is a 20 marker also, you can easily identify that. Then the core solution, I mean not solution, okay, you can say conclusion, what you can say, please write. Despite its limitation in practical utility, means practically we did not suggest anything. Despite its limitation in practical utility, NPA is famously considered as, despite its limitation in the practical utility, NPA is famously considered as what? First reinvention of public administration. Again, George Frederickson. NPA is considered as the first reinvention of public administration, in bracket George Frederickson himself. George Frederickson. First reinvention of public administration. What it did? It made public administration more relevant to the society's needs and circumstances. More relevant to the society's needs and problems. More relevant to the needs and problems. Right? Yeah, so that is broadly about, because it's a very broad question on NPA. Any which way they can, what do you call this? Whatever they ask the question on NPA, more or less it has to be on the same context itself. They can't ask anything. The words may differ, I have told you multiple times. They may not use the same exact words. They may try to tweak it and try to confuse, but they can't go beyond this, because that itself is the overall topic itself is that.